you can find the students who are falling a bit behind, having trouble, not handing in their assignments, not turning up, just finding it hard, if you can find those early on and put support in, that's an immensely powerful strategy, especially if you're really assiduous about discovering the students that are a bit at risk and really assiduous at insisting that they take the help that you're providing them. And the last one is just really what we've been looking at already this morning, differentiating by feedback or formative assessment, and also by individualizing tasks and targets. And that learning loops thing where we were discovering a weakness of a student and then handing it over as a task for the next time they did an essay or whatever, that would be an example of that. So those are the three main approaches. I'm going to concentrate on the top one. We've only got a couple of hours, we can't possibly cover all that. So we're going to look at the top one there, which is to differentiate by task, outcome, and time allowed. Although the time allowed links in with the next one down about support need. If a student isn't succeeding in a certain class, they should be given support and help. It doesn't have to come from you. Very simple strategy is to pair a student who can do it up with one who can't. You need to get the permission of the one who, of the peer tutor, as it were, to do this. But I mean, students are normally very happy to help another. And so if you can find students who have a bit of trouble with X, Y, or Z, find the students who are quite good at X, Y, or Z, why not pair them up and say, look, could you help John with his percentages? Because, I'm only talking about a small problem here. I'm not talking about, solving all their literacy problems. That's not going to happen. But if there's one little aspect of something you've covered that one student's not quite got, why don't you pair them up with somebody else who'll give them a hand? Study buddies is, a term that's sometimes used for that, but you can make up a much posher name than that if you prefer. Okay, let's have a look at Bloom's taxonomy. It's a rough and ready, familiar. It's not the best, perhaps, but it'll do very well for what we're looking at. Because there's a real problem with differentiating in terms of making sure our weak learners learn well. And I'd like to deal with that first of all. Do you remember this from your teacher training days where it's often looked at from the point of view of assessment and levels of questioning, but it's also useful, very useful, to look at it from the point of view of having a ladder of tasks. Some tasks for students that are very simple and some that are more demanding, and having a mix of those, which is immensely important from the learning point of view, as we'll see. I hope you're roughly familiar with all the bits there. Knowledge is just the ability to recall, yeah? Not necessarily understand it. Comprehension, next one up, is not necessarily deeply understanding it. It's just being able to explain, often a rote explanation actually, just to be able to explain the outlines of an idea. The next one up is application. That's where the student applies the learning in a very simple way, in precisely the way they've been shown how to. So for example, a maths teacher says, this is how to do these sums, do some now yourself, it says to the class, and the class now do those same sums, or different sums, but in exactly the way they've been taught. So it's really just repeating a process that they've been taught. And then above that, we've got analysis, which is looking at something in detail, perhaps by cutting it up into bits and looking at all the bits of it, perhaps by looking at the whole thing from different perspectives or points of view or from people's perspectives and so on. A synthesis is like creativity, really. It's solving problems, it's designing, writing, it's creating where the student has not been told directly exactly how to do it. They have to decide which bits of their learning and common sense they will apply to the problem, and they develop their own solution, which is new to them at least. And the last one is evaluative thinking. And it's useful to split these into two. At the bottom, we've got tasks that largely ask the student to reproduce what they've been told or reproduce what they've been shown. Okay? So I show you how to do something, and then you reproduce that method of doing things. Yeah? Or I tell you stuff, and then you tell me it back. Yeah? That's a reproduction task. But above are tasks that require the student to reason with the information and ideas and so on, skills that you've given them. So they now have to think with it. They're not allowed just to parrot back to you stuff that you've told them. I think it's about time for a test. So here we go. This is based on the first verse of Jabberwocky, which was written by Lewis Carroll. The poem goes as follows. "'Twas brillig," and by the way, it's a nonsense poem, right? Sort of better mention this. It's a nonsense poem. Most of the words in this poem have no meaning, okay? Have no meaning, and you're not expected to find a meaning for these words have got no meaning. So here we go. "'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe." Okay, a very moving piece, I'm sure you'll agree. So here we are, 3 questions. By yourself, compare your answers with your pairs. Off you go. You've got 2 minutes. If you get stuck, read the poem terribly carefully. All right? If you get stuck, read the question very carefully. You there? Let's, you ready? Let's see how you've done. Who'd like to give me the answer to the first one? What were the slithy toves doing in the wabe? Gyring and gimbling. Very good. You can mark your own, by the way. This is called self-assessment. You can mark your own. 1 mark for gyring, 1 mark for gimbling. Question 2. How would you describe the state of the borogoves? Excellent. 1 mark for mimsy. 1.5 marks if you said all mimsy. Question 3. What can you say about the mome raths? They outgrabe. That's excellent. Okay. How many people got nearly all of those right? Could you just put your hand up? That's fantastic. Well, it just goes to show, doesn't it, what a wonderful teacher I am. Right. Okay. Question 4. Do students need to understand material in order to answer simple questions correctly? No. This is really worrying because in some classrooms you see this Jabberwocky going on. The teacher, tells them stuff, answers, gets stuff back, and the teacher thinks, hey, they've got this. They're all putting their hands up. They've all done this. 4 out of 4, fantastic. We can move on to the next topic, yeah? But actually all the students are doing is to reproduce stuff they've been told. They haven't necessarily formed their own understanding. They haven't linked it to their prior learning. They haven't made sense of it. They're just recalling phrases. They'll say Bessemer converter, and they'll know it's the answer, but they don't even know what the damn thing is because they're away that day, So they will actually go through these motions for you quite happily without actually understanding what they're doing. Okay, here's another question. Why were the borogoves mimsy? I'll just give you 30 seconds in pairs. Why were the borogoves mimsy? You all happy with that one? Anybody got an answer? Oh, we had a lot of answers for the last one, but we don't seem to have any answers for this one. Have we got one?
It was brillig.
Sorry?
It was brillig.
It was because it was brillig. Good guess. It's not true, but it's a good guess. Okay, that was a bit mean, really, because that was a hard question. So here's an easier one for you. How effective was the mome rath strategy? Anybody like to answer that one for me? You would?
Okay, so I think we would describe as a creative thinker, and like when I read that, I have a very clear picture because I'm familiar with it, so I have pictures in my mind. And when we were going, I said, it means this, it means this. And then everyone put their hands up and said different things to what I had, so I can answer each of your questions because I know my world both are really.
You've made up your answer to that very well. Well done. And thank you for doing it. So we've got somebody here who has constructed very creatively an entirely self-fabricated reason for this. I know somebody else who does this. She's called Mabel, and she's 2 3/4, my granddaughter. And we all do this, actually, to be fair. We all do this. But I'm a physics teacher, and I can't help myself. She had a little... she had a little rubber giraffe, right? It's called Sophie, actually. You probably, some of you who've got kids might know this. And she was holding it like that and dropping it. And I said, why does it go down? How does Sophie know the right way? Why does Sophie always go down, you see? And she said, because I throw it. I said, okay. I said, well, pick it up then and throw it upwards and see which way it goes. So she looked at me askance, you know, but picked it up, threw it upwards, and it went down. I said, there you are. You threw it up, but it went down. Why was that? And she looked at me, slightly sort of narrowed eyes, you know. She said, because it's a giraffe. And so there's no shortage of people who will make sense for you. The question is whether they get it right. Yeah? We're all constructing our meanings all the time. And you'll have friends who make errors, for example, in their political judgments. Yes? You noticed? They'll make errors in their political judgments. They get it wrong. We never do, of course, but they do. So there's no shortage of people who will make ideas up. That's what the human brain is made to do. It cannot usually, especially if you're engaged, it cannot do with having an uncertainty. And where there's a vacuum, it fills it. You know, I know what burgos mean. You know, this is giraffe. You will make these ideas up. Okay, most important question. The first three you could do, the last two you couldn't. Where are they on Bloom? Give you a couple of minutes in pairs. Just find one of A, B, and C, because they're all in a roughly the same place. But do D and E separately. You could do the ones in black print, you couldn't do the ones in red.